I was introduced to a game called Galactic. My friend, what name anyway, just in case. But there's also talks about this game on Reddit constantly because of its non-toxic community and just how well received the game is. It reminds me of Left 4 Dead 2, and it's more comparable to a Minecraft mod pack. Because people will compare it to Minecraft, but I actually think it's not Minecraft at all. I think it's just resource management or something like that. You know, resource gathering and management with Left 4 Dead 2. I think that's more accurate. It's a more accurate way to describe it, at least. The game was interesting. I'll go through some things about it. It's pretty much how I first my my WoW crack. The WoW crack being World of Warcraft as a job, sort of like the fix that it gives me. A sense of satisfaction. I don't know how to describe it perfectly. I used to run a lot of dungeons and I used to enjoy them. I also collected stuff, that's okay. A bit frustrating at times. But Galactic managed to replace that, and I think that's a big feat. And I know people probably have heard it a lot and probably recommended it by friends. But it is generally a good game. Probably not the best of all time, and I think that's why it's not going to appear on my list of best games of all time. But it is good. First thing is, it's rewarding. Like, everything you do rewards you with something. And I think even if you fail a mission, you can get some gold and some XP and maybe some resources. It ultimately depends on how far you got. So it's not all in vain, which I think is a problem with a lot of games, and even Left 4 Dead 2. Well, Left 4 Dead as a whole, just say Left 4 Dead. And the thing that I liked about WoW was I could get good rewards for beating certain content, although it wasn't all that good because some of the content was hard as fuck, and I didn't like hard as fuck because I'm a casual, so that turned me off of WoW, and it still has, and I don't see myself going back even for a new expansion. The point is that there's a lot of rewards in Deep Rock, and that makes it pretty grindy in a good way. Fucking voice, I don't know what's going on with it. Deep Rock has amazing customization and collection, which fills the WoW void. I mean the void that WoW left me. Because of all the cosmetics, it makes it kind of interesting to earn, even though I don't know how you get specific cosmetics other than the shop. There are some you unlock outside the shop through the gameplay, and those come quite rare, I think. I don't know, but they appear so often in a mission. But you can earn cosmetics either through the shop or that way. Although there is one issue with everything in the game being quite expensive of the in-game currency, which I think makes it quite arbitrarily grindy. It's mainly for the resources rather than the money, the gold. The next good thing is a cooperative gameplay, where everyone can still accomplish things on their own, but an addition is that teamwork leads to the missions being easier. And because you can do things on your own, it leads to the least amount of toxicity. Like, even myself as a beginner, noticing mistakes that other beginners make, or sometimes even veterans actually, which is pretty weird. So like, I'm a scout, but we have an engineer who's not putting down platforms, so I can get things up high. The way that I mitigate that, and because of Scout's kit being quite mobile, I use the hover boots, and that way I can mine a way to sit on something and mine the stuff I'm trying to get to. It's pretty clever, and that's what I mean by being able to accomplish things on your own. And you know, even as a scout, you can replace the gunner's job to an extent and defeat big enemies. Yeah. There's also the fact that Deep Rock lacks a. So that's my mic was underneath site. Because Deep Rock lacks a versus mode, which I would be interested in by the way, it seems less toxic. I could be wrong, but when a game becomes competitive, it seems very predatory and expects you to play at the same level. But this can be prevented with a well-designed versus mode. For veteran shooters, this game is a wet dream because you discover tricks that you can transfer from other games, using tricks, for example, using kite mechanics, or finding ways to use your kit to make the missions easier. I went into details about the classes, but I'll skip over that. Each class has a gimmick that can benefit the team. I've only brushed over a portion of what makes this game good. The different objectives and the switchable weapons for each class. I mean, there's like 3 each for the primary and secondary weapon. Also 3 grenades. There's also collections, there's also the levels and the rewards. This game just does it so well. And on top of that, the game is humorous from top to bottom, with no serious themes to be honest. And it's the charm that the game has, where everyone is an asshole to each other and the robots. There's also a joke which I only got from the subreddit, which is leaf lovers, which is a term for elves who typically hold life as sacred and wouldn't harm a loot bug. Obviously it's a joke. It has caveats like the lack of hand-holding and the quality of life. We need things like making things easier to locate. For example, when we're on 9 out of 10 fossils or something, why can't we just spend a bit of gold to locate it or something? Like use a special scanner. For fuck's sake. There's a bug going past. But you know, there are things that the game does are bad, obviously. It's very overwhelming for a beginner, and I think the beginners should have access to a tutorial where you're not just thrown in at something right away, but you have to instead learn how each thing works by completing it a few times and talking to something to go on to the next one. It's kind of like having experience, and I find that's the best way for me to learn at least, and observe everything. And I have mild learning difficulties, so that adds to it. The game also doesn't always tell you what kills you, because sometimes it's just hard to find what kills you in the end. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, you could be mining for a second and suddenly you're down on the floor, I mean. And it doesn't tell you why that happened, and that's a big problem. I hope that's fixed in the future. You know, for example, you could be fighting a dreadnought, but you keep dying to one of its mechanics. So it spawns something. Even though that might be obvious to some, it isn't to other people, because, you know, it's not obvious how you tackle that. There's also a weird bug in the game with rubber banding, and this is the first game I've ever had it in, funny enough. I've seen it happen to others in other games, but the problem thing could cause you to just randomly die. I think my voice is changing, what the fuck? Why is it so weird? I think the most shocking thing of all about Deep Rock Galactic, which is a positive and a negative, is quite addicting at the beginning. I had to alternate between playing the newest Genshin Impact update and Deep Rock. And because there's so much to do, it becomes really hard to tackle both. Last night when I said finally, let's talk about the phrase rock and stone in the heart. I'm unsure what it means, but I guess it means two things. Other than being a joke. 'Cause, you know, you're working for a corporation that is pretty heartless. They want you to be heartless as well as working. But to me it's a way of dwarves being cheerful and uplifting when they are inherently negative about everything else. What this means to me is it's symbol of both what is wrong with games today and what is right with this game. The game is a satirical take of a AAA game release. Obviously a game with monetization that's taking a piss out of that. But this does the opposite of it. Such as not having a competitive scene, having the toxicity actually in the story. This game has short season passes, no long ones I mean. But other games have short ones where you're required to play a lot and have a lot of monetization in that said game. The Deep Rock is kind of themed to be dark and showing what greed does. It's doing what no other game could, or would really. That's where it's most commendable. My favourite line in the game being, if you don't rock on stone you ain't coming home. That means something to me. To me it means, if you're not using this emote, you're probably toxic and you don't belong here with us.